Lift up your eyes to the heavens. Who hung them in place? Who summoned light from the void and gave it a name? Before the stars sang, before gravity bowed, the witness stood. This is the testimony of the cosmos. And we are invited to listen.
Hello and welcome once again to Isaiah LXX. Now that we're done procrastinating, let's really dive into the meat of this channel. If you caught our first episode, I said we'd start out light and gradually dive deeper. But let's be honest, today we're going straight to the bottom. No floaties. Before we can explore righteousness, prophecy, or even divine justice, we have to ask the question that sits beneath all theology. Not just Christian theology, but every theological framework mankind has ever wrestled with. How was the universe created? Was it designed? Or just some cosmic oopsie? This is arguably one of the oldest and most debated questions in human history. Philosophers, physicists, prophets, and skeptics have all stood at the edge of this inquiry and peered in. We're not going to solve it today, and I'm not pretending to. But we are going to examine both sides. We'll walk through the data, call out the fallacies, and see what stands when the dust is settled. Now, since we're asking whether a God even exists, based on how the universe began, we will not be using Scripture as evidence. The Bible, like other sacred texts, will show up for context and philosophical insight, not as proof. If we're building a case, we're starting with common ground. Reason, observation, and the data we all share. In order to best discover the truth, I think it's best to find common ground first. What do both sides agree on? With that, there are 5 major points both sides don't really dispute. 1. The universe appears finely tuned. Both camps acknowledge that physical constraints like gravity, electromagnetism, and cosmological constraints are remarkably precise and conducive to life. 2. Life is rare and complex. The emergence of intelligent life is statistically improbable and biologically intricate. 3. Scientific inquiry is valid. Both sides use empirical data, though they interpret it differently. 4. Evolution does occur. Most intelligent design theorists accept microevolution, small changes within species, though they do challenge macroevolution, large-scale transitions. And finally, 5. The universe had a beginning. The Big Bang is widely accepted as the origin point of time and space. So now we have our common ground. Let's take a look at where and why we disagree. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So this is how Christians believe the universe was formed. Now let's see how scientists say the universe was made. Notice the difference? For the most part, Christians and science agree on how it all started. The only difference is that science has nothing before the Big Bang, unlike Christians, otherwise known as the starter. When it comes to the Big Bang, the reason this theory is most widely accepted is because, according to this model, everything, space, matter, energy, even time itself, originated from a singular, unimaginably dense point. Then it expanded outward, rapidly forming into the cosmos we now observe. This model is supported by several empirical pillars. Cosmic microwave background radiation, that faint echo of the initial burst, the shifting of galaxies showing ongoing outward expansion, and the elemental composition of the universe, which matches what you'd expect from that kind of origin. But here's where things get more interesting. That beginning wasn't just the birth of matter. It was also the birth of time and space. General relativity, Stephen Hawking's boundary conditions, and the BGV theorem all point to one conclusion. Time and space themselves began. There was no before in the way we typically think of it, because before depends on time. So as we can see, we have a very good case for the model of the Big Bang. But science now has a problem. If everything began from a point and exploded, what caused it? AKA, what was the starter? Well, it's by its very definition, it would have to be something outside of time, space, and matter, which would make it timeless, uncreated, and immaterial. Sound like someone or something we know? Now, there's no shortage of theories that try to explain this starter. Cylindrical universe models, the multiverse hypothesis, quantum gravity speculation. They're imaginative, no doubt, but none of them are empirically verified. They require just as much intellectual faith as any theological claim, sometimes even more. So let's take a look at some of these theories, and I'll tell you why I'm not convinced. This is a fun theory. Every time I hear it, it reminds me of an insane accordion player. However, the example they use to illustrate this is a rubber band. The universe expanded until gravity pulls everything back together to that initial point and then explodes and expands back outwards again. The problem I have with this is that, again, they need an initial cause. If I lay a rubber band down, it's not just going to stretch itself. It needs an outside force to pull it outwards. Plus, we also face another problem. Due to the gravity and friction, energy is lost, therefore eventually the universe will just come together and no longer have the energy to expand outward again. Another fun theory is the multiverse theory. It's personally one of my favorites, because who wouldn't want to know what would happen if we made different choices? However, while it makes for wonderful sci-fi, I just don't see it having any merit. However, while it makes for wonderful sci-fi, I just don't see it. Who are you? This could take some time. Okay, so my joke fell flat. I can accept that. My point being is that while we may not currently have any scientific evidence for any of these theories, I'm always open to re-examine any future evidence as it becomes available. And don't get me wrong, science is always learning and discovering more and more each day. But until that day comes, I'm hopeful you're beginning to see why I believe in God now. Overall, the core of this debate centers around the idea of a starter, whether it's a deity, energy surge, or something beyond what science can only imagine. It's something that has to be timeless, uncreated, omnipresent, as well as immaterial. And as I said, I can only imagine one thing that fits that model at this time. So now that we've separated fact from theory and laid everything out before us, it's time to make a decision. Is it a horse or a donkey? Trust me, that analogy will make sense here in a moment. As I see it, this is where the split happens. It's not denying the science to call it one or the other. It's just a matter that now we've reached a chasm and need to step off and let the cards fall where they may. Just know that no matter which path we choose, we have to be intellectually honest enough to admit to ourselves that it requires faith to choose this path. Now, this isn't a definite conclusion, and we're only staring at the edge of a much larger canvas. But right now, we only have a few pieces of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and we're trying to determine if the final picture is a horse or a donkey. Told you that an analogy would make sense. And maybe, just maybe, what we find as we dig deeper isn't just data, it's design. I hope this was enough to give you something to chew on. And I hope you can respect my rule about keeping the Bible out of this. I think I did a good job myself. But before I go, I wanted to drop a few numbers on you if you're still sitting on the fence. Now, before I hear about the biases, I assure you that neither of these people are Christian, nor was these figures calculated for the specific purpose of supporting either side of this debate. Now, I'm going to apologize if I butcher their names, but according to physicist Lee Small, the odds of the universe randomly producing life-permitting constraints is 1 in 10 to the 229th power. That's already astronomically unlikely. But Oxford's Roger Penrose took it even further. He calculated the odds of our universe's initial low entropy state, the very condition that allows structure and life, is 1 in 10 to the 123rd power. That number is so vast, you could not write it out, even if you used every particle in the universe as ink. So that's my case. Did you find anything worth considering? Or is there something you think I got wrong? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just place them down below and let's talk about it. And if you think this video is something someone might benefit from, don't be afraid to share and like it with them. Finally, if you want to see where we go next, well, then the subscribe button is there just for you. Until then, next time, God bless. Let him who has ears to hear, let us all hear.